All right. Welcome, Ben Cooper, to this brand new expert series here at Reach Reporting. So excited to learn about you and your business and how you're leveraging Reach to help your clients. So, I guess to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business, kind of what led you to Reach, and kind of take it from there.
Absolutely. So I started Amplify in 2016, and it was I'd gone through an MBA program in entrepreneurship. Was living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time. Uh, was working with a group of investors, and really I was kind of in charge of due diligence for these investors. And so I was looking at the numbers of a lot of businesses who they had started something, it was growing, that had a lot of potential, but they didn't really have a strong grasp of their numbers, and they didn't really have a good understanding of really the potential of what their company could grow into, or even the trajectory that they were on. And so it really felt like they had seen Shark Tank too many times, and here they were kind of looking for guidance and looking for help, but they were willing to sell part of their business just to get a plan sometimes. It wasn't even always that they needed the capital. It was just they were alone and guessing around some of the numbers. And so in the process of doing due diligence, I was kind of extrapolating some of the numbers and was sitting across the table saying, "Hey, here's what I see. Here are what the numbers are telling me." And they're looking at these visuals and these, they were Google Sheet, spreadsheets and forecasts that I was building at the time. But I was trying to make them look pretty for them, and they were saying, "Whoa, those are my numbers. That's my business that we're looking at here." It's not just kind of the boring old statements that they would be getting, from their bookkeeper or something, that they were having trouble understanding. It was, wow, these numbers are actually speaking to me, and I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what's possible, and that's really where the opportunity started a number of years ago, to come alongside some of these business owners and just you could call it, investor insights for hire, or I've been called business therapist by some clients, fractional CFO. There's a lot of labels that you can kind of put around it, but at the end of the day, it's really, bringing clarity to the numbers and asking questions around what's possible for the business owners. And so, like I mentioned, I was originally operating kind of in spreadsheet world, Google Sheets, Excel, building from scratch every time. And it was fine. But, what I found was I was spending a lot of hours behind the scenes, carving away at the numbers, copying and pasting things, and trying to make sure that everything was airtight, everything was matching. Before the meetings I would have with clients, and I would show up, and they would ask a couple questions. Well, is it possible to see a graph where this number is kind of charted against that number? And it was like, yes, and give me 48 hours, because it's going to take me a little time to go back and update some of that stuff. And so, a few years back, I started exploring, there's got to be a better way. I'm getting access to QuickBooks or Xero with the, through the client's accountant or bookkeeper, and I'm exporting these, monthly statements and trying to make all the lines match in my formulas, and it's just a headache. And so I came across a couple other tools that connected up to the accounting platform, and it's like, oh, cool, this is awesome. This tool over here, and I probably won't name names on the other tools that I have used and continue to use, that because I still subscribe and am using them for different purposes, but they could accomplish some of what I needed, but not all of what I needed. And an example of that is, okay, I can connect the QuickBooks and it gives me a live dashboard picture of what's happening, but I can't really create any formulas that really, give any kind of meaningful extrapolation of, what revenue might look like, for example. And then I found another tool that could do a little bit more, and the formulas, though, that I could use in that tool were lacking. It was almost like using, on your phone, there's the basic calculator that you pull out. Kind of felt like, okay, I can do some simple math here, and I can do some things around some of the drivers and variables that I, know are tied to the future performance of the business. Being able to tie things like this is the direct cost of every dollar of this revenue stream, and then pull forward some of the rules and kind of linear regressions and different extrapolation methods that gave me a little bit more control. But at the same time, what I was finding some limitations around was I would get added to this client over here in their account. I would get added to this client over here. And because I'm not the accountant and I'm not, kind of owning all of the QuickBooks or Xero connections to each of the clients, I was sitting there, almost in this silo where I would build a forecast from scratch. And no matter what I built over here, I couldn't transfer it over to the next client that I would start working with. So everything I had to do was with each new client, it's like, all right, here we go. Another few hours of painful kind of like building some of the basic formulas and I mean hours and hours. I mean, it's just like, and every time I'm doing that, I'm sitting here going, I know this isn't what I should be doing. This isn't the best use of my time. But it wasn't necessarily at the point where it made sense for me to hire and train somebody else to do it. It was just one of those like, I'll just buckle down and block out a few hours and do this today. But, it was just draining, just to be honest, and kind of exhausting. And every time it kind of felt like I just would rather be on a video call with a client, because that's where the joy and excitement, the life for me kind of comes through the work that I'm doing. It's looking at the numbers together and being able to ask really important questions. And with some of those other tools before, and I'll get to Reach here in a second and why I'm really excited about Reach. But what I found was sometimes if the question is really difficult to answer, I might hesitate asking it. Not because I'm trying to withhold value from the relationship for the client, but sometimes it's just not possible to really answer the question. And I'll give it an example in a Reach template that I've created, and kind of a basic report that I've created, where, for the first time ever, I'm actually able to bring all of the insights that I'm providing for my clients into one single experience. So with some of the other platforms, it's like, okay, we'll go to this tool and look at that graph in that tool, and then we're going to have a Google Sheet open in the next tab over in my browser, and we'll switch to that to go answer this question. And it's chaotic, to be honest, because they're just, okay, where's that spreadsheet? Which version of that are we looking at, and who has access to it? And it's just tiring. So all of that is teeing up, the relief, honestly, that I find in what I'm able to do in Reach specifically, because for my clients, it's a better experience than anything I've ever been able to provide before, because like I mentioned, finally, all of the insights are in a single report or dashboard that we're able to look at together. And secondly, and this is huge for me as just a small, growth advisory operation, I can template and systematize my ability to onboard the next relationship. And so in a really important way, I'm able to much more quickly get up and running for the onboarding conversation with the client, connect their accounting data, bring it in, and all the graphs, all the visuals, all the math formulas that I have, I can map it way more quickly in a really powerful way. And so it saves me a lot of time at the end of the day. So better client experience. So it's better, faster. And, because of that, it's like, it's a win-win for both the client and me. And so, and another thing that I love too, and I can share my screen if it makes sense. It may be helpful for me to share my screen and just show a couple of things that I really like. I referenced one of the specific things I was only able to do once I started working in Reach. But the customization visually for me is really important. I care a ton about branding, and I care a lot about a client being able to look at a report and see that it's for them and see that their logo is on it. And simple things like within the Reach platform, I can have the client's logo uploaded once, and it feels like I'm working in Canva. Just from a design standpoint, I'm just dragging stuff around, resizing things. But then it also feels like I'm working in Google Sheets because I can make complex formulas happen that were off limits in some of the other tools that I was using. So I'll share my screen. The alternative, the old way that I was seeing, you seeing this, the old, makes me cringe. Business owners so often are getting, this is the experience they're getting around their financials a lot of times. It's almost like a nurse handing a patient the scan, like, hey, here you go. Here are the results from the test that we just did. And you're sitting here as the patient going like, so what does it mean? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And it just feels unfair to the business owner, to be honest. So switching from that to something like this is just, I had an audible gasp from one business owner that I showed this to. She was like, oh, wow. Like, it's so different than what you're used to seeing around your numbers. And the cool thing is, I'm able to customize the look and feel of this. I'm choosing all the fonts. I'm, embedding their logo. These numbers look like they're just typed there, but importantly, when I update the month, all of these update with it. And so, whatever the values are porting in from the accounting software and how I'm kind of manipulating those numbers, I'm able to, when the month ends and I go in and look at the updated picture, this, I don't have to type this again. Like it's small things like that, but it's a game changer because I'm able to now provide the experience that I want to provide, and it hones in our conversations because I'm able to much more quickly. And it was interesting when I initially got up and running with Reach, I sent one to a client I've been working with for years, and I sent him a report. We had a call scheduled to walk through it, and his comment leading up to the call was, he said, "Hey, when can we meet to talk through this report?" And I wasn't sure if he was wanting to meet because it was confusing to him, or it was new, or it was, just if it wasn't hitting the mark for him or whatever. We got on the call, and from the moment he shared his screen and started guiding me through it, almost, because he wasn't even talking about the format of it or anything at all. It was straight to, wow, look at what this is saying. Like, it was straight to the insights. And that was exciting for me because he was like, what it felt like was all of the noise got pushed to the side, and we're like looking at the truth now. And we're able to just talk about what's real. And we're able to actually gauge, it's so hard to get up to the point where, so what does it mean? You get asked that question. It's like, so what are we going to do about it? And that's what I feel like I'm in a position to do now, with being able to provide a more customized report. And so, a lot of these values, come straight from accounting software. It's, it makes sense kind of how these numbers might be ported in. But I'll scroll down to one thing that is not coming from QuickBooks that for e-commerce clients, this is a really valuable tool that I know matters to them a lot, because a lot of times, just like getting a PDF from your bookkeeper, there's also an uncomfortable moment that happens sometimes where if you're spending money with a marketing agency, they're going to ask you, okay, so what's the budget this month? And a lot of times the marketing agency doesn't have a full picture of your finances, so they're not understanding your margins necessarily. And it can be unclear even, sometimes they may be incentivized to spend more on advertising because maybe their fee goes up alongside that, and so it creates a little bit of, I wouldn't say mistrust, but it can cause a little bit of ambiguity around receiving some advice from an agency that says, we think you should be spending more. And, if I'm the business owner, I'm thinking, well, of course you do. Why wouldn't you? But what this table is doing, it's pulling from a tool that I originally been doing in spreadsheets. But all of this is happening within the Reach platform now. which is incredible because before I was literally doing analysis in a spreadsheet, taking a screenshot of it and emailing it. Like, what is that? That feels so archaic now, but it's the reality. It's like, well, that's the best option. I'll use a quick example of a business owner I talked with last week, and it's so important. This is all beautiful. This is great. I would argue that this matters very little if there's no first meaningful conversation around what the goal is for your business. If that's not clear, the reality is you don't have any option but to just, you're either emulating what you see somebody else doing or what you think is well, this is what a good entrepreneur does, right? Like, there's so much unnecessary. I talk to so many business owners. I know, like, the imposter syndrome is real. Like, everybody feels a little bit like, well, I'm just faking it. Somehow this other person, everybody else has figured it out, and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's like the entrepreneurship police are going to find me someday and realize that I'm a fake, And it's like, no, this is so normal. But what is important is that each business owner is really clear on what matters to them. And the business owner I was talking to last week told me about a group of owners of similar businesses that he's a part of. And he said, everybody's kind of getting excited about this idea of acquiring, 10, I think it was actually 20 locations in the next 10 years. So I'm going to go snatch up, and you can imagine what that might be. Any kind of industry where it's like dentistry or, bakeries or auto mechanics or whatever it is. Like, let's all commit to trying to just grow each of our businesses. And no matter what, it's like 20 in 10 years. That's the goal. Let's each of us do that. And this guy I was talking to, he was saying, well, I don't know, because my two daughters are in junior high and high school right now, and I don't know, like, I don't want to sacrifice that. I'm afraid that growing according to that definition of success would put at risk the thing I care most about in life. And he's sitting here, and so he's wrestling with that on his own, because he doesn't have necessarily somebody that he can really turn to and say, this group that he was actually getting that advice from is supposed to be the support group that you're getting, the support that you need, right? But in this case, everybody's excited about this, what, to be honest, it's an arbitrary goal, because when I hear that, what I hear is, man, if I have 20 more locations in the next 10 years, that will definitely make me happy, right? Like, I'll have everything I want, right? And the reality is, maybe for some people, that is exactly what they should be pursuing. Like, that is very much in line. The problem becomes when that becomes prescriptive for the next business owner. Again, copy paste. Like, if we aren't clear on our definition of success, somebody else will gladly give us one. And that's so dangerous when it comes to running our businesses. So what I care about most is aligning whatever the goal is. And this is part of the fun, like the origin story that I was sharing when I was kind of looking at the numbers of these businesses on behalf of some investors. When I was invited into well, hey, we don't want to sell part of our business. Could we just pay you to meet with us and build out a plan for us? And it was like, this is fun because we don't have to go get permission from anybody. Like, we actually get to, in a really pure way, say, this is what we want the business to provide. And for me personally, I've got 4 kids. My wife and I have 4 kids, and they're at ages where I need to make sure that, I will never put, business above, like, I'm not going to start traveling in business and somehow in a way that would trivialize or cause me to miss out on some meaningful time with family. And that's my approach to making Amplify a shape that supports a holistic picture of my life, at the end of the day. And so, like, as entrepreneurs, I just see more often than not, like, there is a tension there where business owners are, again, feeling a little bit insecure about their numbers and not totally sure about where things are heading, and if it's okay for them to do things differently than they see other people doing it. And that's where I get so excited, because I'm like, let's just bring some of the, and coming back to reach as the tool, it's like, let's just bring some of the like types of insights that an investor would give, or a fractional CFO or something. It's like, you're getting all of a sudden a view into your numbers that you never had before. And it's not just a random view into your numbers, it's in context and it's tailored to what you're saying matters most. And that's where I feel like the opportunity, we progress up this value pyramid from just, okay, the data is available, to then saying like, well, so what does it mean for me? And what am I going to do differently because of what I've learned? And so to me, it's like the meetings I get to have with clients around looking at these numbers is like, it's almost like being like a pit crew, where it's like, hey, like, here's what we're seeing, like, go for, like, go race hard, like I can't wait to see next month like how you're doing. And when there's a bigger story that, and this is just a human thing, I think it's when we see meaning in like where things are heading, just being able to see that there's like, I have some agency here, I have some control over and influence over my business to help, steward it into along some sort of path that I'm excited about. It just creates it's a refreshing peace of mind that I see a lot of times, just because it's showing up in place of just feeling like every step along the way, I'm just guessing. Like, it's just a different experience. So, it's just changed the way, like, using reach for me, again, like, just to land the plane here, using the tool has spurred more meaningful, higher level conversations and I have more time to have those at the end of the day. So that's the value proposition for me that is just like unbeatable, because I don't have to sacrifice even the math that I want to do to answer some of the questions. I get to be as curious as I want to be and not worry about, well, I'm afraid to ask that question because I'm not sure there's an easy way to really answer that. But now I feel like I get to be curious, and then knowing the capabilities of the Reach tool, I get to be resourceful and just build an insight that answers that. And most importantly, Arthur, I get to use that insight for the next client. I get to offer that same insight. And so I'm able to just build up a library or repertoire of valuable resources I can bring to each relationship. And that's new territory for me.
That's huge. Yeah, that's humongous. I love that. I remember one of our conversations we've had over the last few weeks here. You talked about almost as if you're a chef and you're cooking with different ingredients. And you talked a little bit about how you felt like you were always limited, I guess, to cooking in one grocery aisle or something. You want to explain that a little bit? Absolutely.
So we love Aldi. I love it, but I'm going to use it as the negative thing right now, because it's, if you've ever been in an Aldi or any like grocery store that, where value is a big piece of it, it's like one reason they're able to provide that is because it's like all standardized and there's only one option of, pasta sauce that you can choose from. You're not going to get a variety, right? And that's great. But what you end up, like, if you want to be a gourmet chef, the reality is if you only are limited to the ingredients on the shelves of this, and I use Aldi as a metaphor for some other tools that I've used in the past, where they're just limited pocket calculator type things that you can do. And so using the chef metaphor, I think I mentioned to you, it's like, I feel like I've been trying to cook gourmet food or having to tailor my recipes or limit my recipes according to what I can get off the shelf, as opposed to what feels like I have every ingredient in the world that I may need or imagine. And so, using that, furthering that metaphor, it feels like I can really cook what I'm imagining, and I can serve up to, the people I'm helping the dishes that I'm really excited about. And I don't have to feel like, sorry, it's not exactly what I was envisioning, or like, and getting practical here. It's like the number of times where I would be presenting a visual or a tool to somebody, or an insight to somebody, and they would say, well, this is great. Can we also get this metric included at the bottom of this table and be able to, compare the difference between labor costs and revenue and costs, whatever it might be. And, there are too many times where the last few years I've had to say, that would be great, wouldn't it? Like, sorry, this is the dish. This is the dish we're eating. And, it's so that limiting factor. I love Aldi, so I don't want to throw them under the bus, but you just can't get everything that you want or you imagine. So with specifically the thing that I get excited about, and there are two sides of this. When it comes to the reporting, it's the visualization capabilities and customization that I'm able to do. So I can make the graphs, choose different fonts and display however I want and hide different rows within some of the graphs. And I can resize things. Again, I mentioned Canva as that's what it feels like. I'm working in, so I can make any graph, any size I want and tailor that. But more importantly than the visualization is the capabilities I can do on, behind the scenes. So it looks really simple and clear. And that's really a lot of the hard work that is happening for me is, how do I make the complex look simple? Because if there isn't some intentional, like it's just a chaotic mess if you're, trying to figure out how to make sense of some of the numbers and financials if you're a business owner. Whereas, with the right questions and with the right process and method and tool, it's possible to then be able to go into the chaos and bring order and simplicity back to the client and say, here are the only numbers that are really important for this conversation. And I'm not even going to show you everything that's possible. I'm not even going to, just because the reality is it's not always helpful. If you try to just drag all of the templates and metrics that if you're not careful, you could scroll through and go, oh, that one, well, of course that's good. That's important. Let's drag that on. Okay. Well, yeah, that one looks cool. Like, let's drag that on. But what you end up with is you could have a 400-page report that is telling you nothing because it's trying to tell you everything. And that's not helpful at the end of the day. So being able to go into the numbers and manipulate them, work with them, and then bring back just the meaningful insights that I want to show. And it's going back to your ingredient metaphor. It's the number of formulas that I can do. It feels like working in a spreadsheet. So I can actually hit the equal sign and it brings up, a whole plethora. I had to get that word in there. The whole plethora of options to work with the numbers. And so it feels like working in Google Sheets, but then it's all connected automatically and syncs automatically to the accounting data each month. So I would say it's a dream.
That's awesome. Well, I know we spent your time here today. Any last anything else that you wanted to make sure we talked about today, or did we kind of cover everything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about is the just the progress of technology that's happening, that and where I see it being really important to do what I was showing today, in the sense of um, being able to provide not just, hey, here are the numbers, but let's start to talk about what they might mean for you. I know that can be an uncomfortable shift, but I just, for other advisors or bookkeepers or accountants, I just want to encourage taking steps that direction, just because what I see um, a lot of times is a lot of classical musicians not feeling comfortable to even try to learn jazz. But at the end of the day, you can learn jazz. Like it's really good, and I think uh, it's a really rewarding conversation to have, where it's not just transactional feeling sometimes, where it's a little bit of like, hey, here's the report, here's the information you asked for, good luck. But there's actually a reason why it makes sense to get to know the business owners on a little bit of a deeper level. And you don't have to get like super personal necessarily, but once you do start talking about and asking questions around what you hope your business will provide you, you just learn a lot about the people you're serving. And it for me at least creates a really deep connection with wanting them to hit those goals and get those results that they care about, see what leads to success and uncover what would lead to failure, and just see ahead of time, the potholes along the way that you want to avoid, and the shortcuts maybe that are possible.
Huge. Inspiring. I love it. Sweet, buddy. Have a good one.
Arthur.
Okay, thanks for your time. Bye now.
Yeah, absolutely. This was fun.
See ya.